Well, it has been one hell of a week, hasn't it? Maybe not for you kids. I hope you had the greatest week ever. Because in the karmic balancing of scales, somebody had to have a phenomenal week out there to make up for my awful, shitty, terrible week, which is explaining why, for the first time ever, we are doing a double secret Gonzo hybrid episode of Sports Frenzy 2.0, dropping on Friday afternoon, September the 27th. Why, are you asking? Aren't we getting the sports edition and the weekend edition? Well, we're mashing them together because, like I said, it has been a fucked up, awful week. Jury duty. Internet goes out for almost a full day right when the conquistador Dave Height and I were planning on putting together those two separate but equal and equally awesome episodes for you that we do each and every week. So, trying to scramble here, trying to make it up to you as best as I can. Normally the sports edition drops Thursday morning. The weekend edition drops Saturday morning. So why not drop an episode in between on Friday afternoon that's going to cover the best of both worlds? You know how much I love the best of both worlds. One of the greatest songs ever recorded by the mighty Van Halen. So we're going to talk sports for about half an hour, and then we're going to talk about entertainment. Pop culture for about half an hour, and then we will save some of the good stuff for next week, so we can get back on track. Your Uncle Dave and I can get everything rolling properly as it should be. So you know, this time of the year, of course, with sports, we start off with the NFL. Now, we're going to look real quick back at NFL Week 3. Week 4 has already started, as last night we had the Dallas Cowboys beating the New York Giants. But last weekend, Week 3, just covering the significant games. Colts beat the Bears in Indianapolis 21-16. Wow, this game might have set football back 30 or 40 years now. Do I say that lightly? Yes, kind of, because the quality of football here in the NFL has been so bad, even counting last night's game with the Giants and the Cowboys, has been so bad through the first 3+ weeks that it wasn't just the Colts and Bears who are playing exceptionally awful football. Bears can't run the football. Bears' offensive line still looks terrible. Caleb Williams forced to throw the ball 52 times in a losing effort. 363 yards, did throw a couple TDs, but was responsible for 3 turnovers. And he still somehow managed to look better than Anthony Richardson. And the Colts fans out there have got to start wondering about Anthony Richardson. Technically, kinda, sorta, still a rookie due to injuries last year, but he doesn't look like he's getting it. And of course, now we've seen Bo Nix win a game with the Broncos. We have seen Jaden Daniels look exceptional for the Washington Commanders. I think Caleb Williams is starting to get it. But where does that leave Anthony Richardson, who should be ahead of these guys, considering he had a handful of games last year to get a flavor, to get a taste of what the speed and the style of NFL football is like, and now he looks more lost than the rookies, the actual true rookies who are playing in their 3rd, going on to their 4th games. He should have a leg up on these guys, and he doesn't look like he does. But somehow, some way, through the ineptitude of the Chicago Bears, the Colts did win avoid going 0-3. The Colts beat the Bears 21-16. The Vikings, an impressive victory over the Houston Texans, 34-7 up in Minneapolis. Vikings look like they're for real, kids. Beating up on the Texans, beating the 49ers. Sam Darnold, the latest reclamation project this year. You got Sam Darnold. You've got Justin Fields. You've got, going back a year or two, Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith. Maybe it's better for these young quarterbacks to move on. We're looking at a situation in Carolina with Bryce Young. Now, if Carolina actually cared about his future, they would trade him. They obviously are playing better with Andy Dalton. Trade Bryce Young, get some draft capital back. Hopefully their owner and their front office, of course, they've got the worst owner in the NFL with Tepper. Let the kid move on and do something like what Sam Darnold's doing, what Baker Mayfield has done, what Geno Smith has done. Justin Fields currently resurrecting his career in Pittsburgh. Because it only stands to logic. If you're brought in as a highly touted rookie out of the college ranks, you're going to get drafted by, guess what? An awful team with a high draft pick, with a bad coaching staff. And then the only way you're going to survive is if you get lucky enough where early on that coach gets fired and the front office has enough common sense to bring in a much better, higher profile coach. Are you listening to me, Chicago? Matt Eberflus is not the answer. He needs to get shit canned. If they can't beat the Rams this weekend at home, Matt Eberflus needs to go. You've got to staunch the bleeding. Get somebody else in there. There are a lot of coaches sitting out there. Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick, Pete Carroll. Now, I don't know if any of them would come to Chicago, but you have got to spend the money and give up the power. This formula is not working in Chicago anymore with the McCaskies and the idiots they bring in the front office. It's not. You are going to get Caleb Williams killed. Because I'll tell you right now, as a diehard Bears fan, and Dave would echo me on this if he were here, if they can't make this work with Caleb Williams, then shut it down. Shut it down completely and just accept the fact you're going to be mediocre to awful every year until eternity. There is no way in holy hell an organization should miss this many times on a quarterback. It's a joke. It's an absolute pathetic joke. Even the Detroit Lions have had better success with quarterbacks. The Jacksonville Jaguars have had better success. No, I'm not talking about Trevor Lawrence, but Mark Brunell. Mark Brunell was better than any quarterback we have seen in the Super Bowl era with the Bears. You can talk about Carolina. Carolina had Kerry Collins and they had Jake Delhomme. There is no excuse for this organization to constantly fail when it comes to getting in, drafting, or free agency, getting in a top-level quarterback. Sorry, I went from the Vikings, Texans back to the Bears. I apologize. The whole Sam Darnold thing kind of launched me off into that. Just when we thought the Saints were going to be unbelievably good after two impressive victories in their first 2 weeks, an ugly, ugly game, shocking, another ugly game. The Eagles go into New Orleans, beat the Saints 15-12. I don't know what to make of either of those teams. Nick Sirianni, hated by everyone, it seems like, players, fans, but he somehow keeps his team competitive and keeps them able to stay in a game or to actually win games. But this is a high wire act with Sirianni. I don't know how long it's going to last. We'll talk more about the Eagles in a few minutes. Ravens going to Dallas, beat the Cowboys. Sorry, going to Arlington and beat the Dallas Cowboys 28-25. Now, as I just mentioned last night, the Cowboys bounced back, won. Wasn't pretty. They didn't look phenomenal. The Giants dominated time of possession, keeping the Cowboys offense off the field. The Dallas defense under Mike Zimmer does not look all that sharp. And there were a lot of injuries last night on the defensive side to be concerned about, including Micah Parsons. So we'll see where Dallas ends up right now at 2-2. I don't think anybody's really and truly scared of them. The Chiefs somehow find a way, once again, to beat the Falcons in Atlanta 22-17. Chiefs go to 3-0, but nobody's overly impressed with the way the Kansas City Chiefs are playing right now. Travis Kelce, continuing on from last year, very, very disappointing start to the season for him. Yeah, he had a nice playoff run last year, but if you remember, he wasn't all that great in the regular season last year either. I still think this Falcons team is really, really good. I think they are still going to be a factor of force, and I still think they are going to win somehow, some way, the NFC South. Now, of course, the other teams outside of the Bears that Dave and I follow, the Miami Dolphins, of course, are a train wreck, as we predicted. Without Tua, there is nobody to utilize Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. They get blasted by the Seattle Seahawks, 24-3. Skylar Thompson, backup quarterback, now he's hurt. So we're looking at possibly Tim Boyle starting here against the Titans down in Miami. But the Dolphins drop to 1-2. So now things open up a little bit more in the AFC East for the Jets and the Bills. And then the Buccaneers, surprisingly, get dumped by the Denver Broncos. That's the first Bo Nix win I referenced a few minutes ago. Broncos beat up on the Buccaneers 26-7. So now this is why I'm talking about how the Falcons are going to be a factor in the NFC South, even though they're 1-2, because both the Saints and the Buccaneers lost badly in terms of quality of play. So let's move on to this week's games, the upcoming games. As I mentioned, I already know we've had one game in the books, but we did not pick that among our expert panelists. So we've got 8 games on the slate. Let's run through them real quick for you. We'll hit the highlights. If you want to see the full actual slate, check out the Facebook page. They're already up. All the picks are already posted. As I mentioned, this is going to be a very short, hybrid episode to try to keep you guys updated for the week in everything, sports and pop culture, because, again, it's been a hell of a week for the Maestro. Saints at Falcons, Sunday, September 29th. Dave and Sam and I taking the Falcons, everybody else on the panel taking the Saints. As I mentioned, I still believe in this Falcons team. Too much talent, and I believe the Saints are frauds. Rams at Bears. This is where we find out, in my opinion, if Matt Eberflus can hang on as head coach or he needs to be fired immediately. The Rams are beat up. Yes, they had a great comeback win against the 49ers, but they have no Cooper Kupp, no Puka Nacua. So all you've got to do is shut down Kyron Williams and let Matt Stafford try to beat you with subpar receivers. No tight end to speak of, no star tight end, no star receivers. Just shut down the running game. That's all you've got to do, and this Bears defense is more than capable of it. So I'm taking the Bears. Bill and Jen, Nick and Aaron are with me. Dave, Traitor Dave, not Traitor Dave, Traitor Dave, Sam, and Doug, another traitor. Doug's a diehard Bears fan. Those three are taking the Rams. Sam, I expect this from as a Lions fan. Vikings at Packers. Doesn't matter if Jordan Love plays or not. That's the tricky part of this. I still think the Packers at home will find a way to win. Matt LaFleur is coach of the year right now. God, that pains me to say that since he's the Packers head coach, but he is proving beyond a shadow of a doubt this year. He's going to keep that team despite injuries, despite maybe not the best roster in the NFL, keep that team competitive and involved. The Vikings, as good as they've looked, are due for a loss. I'm taking the Packers along with Sam, Nick, and Aaron. Vikings for Doug, Jen, Bill, and Dave. 2 more games here. Like I said, all the games, all the slate, college and pro, will be posted on the Facebook page. They're out there already. Eagles at Buccaneers. The Hurricane Helene will have passed through. I don't know about the extent of any kind of damage to Raymond James Stadium. As ugly as the Eagles have looked, they find a way to win. The one thing that concerns me is both receivers. The top 2 receivers for the Eagles look like they could miss this game, looking a lot like the Rams, who we just talked about. So, will Jalen Hurts have enough to beat the Buccaneers? I love my Buccaneers, but they did not impress me last week. I'm wondering, they're dinged up too. Both of their wide receivers, although in better shape, are both on the injury report. Of course, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. They don't know who their running back is. I'm not sure how good that defense is in Tampa. There's a reason why the Eagles picked up Jahan Dotson from the Commanders. They needed to have insurance in case something like this happened with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. Now, Dallas Goedert looked last week like the best tight end in the NFL, so I'm sure Jalen Hurts will zero in on him. Jahan Dotson, if he wants to have a second act, as young as he is in the NFL, he needs to step up and have a big game here. I think he will. The Eagles, for me, Dave, Sam, Bill, and Aaron. Jen, Nick, and Doug take the Buccaneers. Then finally, big game Sunday night. Bills at Ravens. I think the Ravens are on the upswing. They have had a brutal start to their season in terms of a tough schedule at Kansas City, at Dallas. They're 1-2, but I think they're getting better. At some point, the Bills' magic is going to wane a little bit. A little bit. I love what they've done with addition by subtraction, getting rid of some dead weight like Stephon Diggs. The team looks better. They look like they're more cohesive, but I still don't 100% buy into Sean McDermott. Whereas I do 100% will always buy into John Harbaugh. At home, the Ravens win this game. I take the Ravens, Sam as well, Doug and Aaron. We're split 4-4 on this. Bills for Dave, Bill, Jen, and Nick. So that's just some of our NFL picks for the week. Be sure to jump onto the Facebook page to see all the picks. They're out there right now. They're posted. One interesting stat in the NFL before we move on to college football. Last week's Washington-Cincinnati game, technically still this week, it was Monday night, last week's NFL schedule. The Monday night game between the Washington Commanders and the Cincinnati Bengals. The first time we've seen this since 1940. where there were no punts, no turnovers in the entire game. So, of course, I love to throw these little fun facts in every now and again when I can. And I've got a couple more, but I'm going to save those for next week for the Conquistador. Moving on to college football, of course, my Miami Hurricanes look stellar. They look awesome. They're actually playing tonight, September the 27th. Rivalry game against Virginia Tech down in Miami. So I imagine the field is going to be a little sloppy. That'll hurt the Hurricanes a little bit. But this is not the same Virginia Tech team that I have been afraid of over the last couple of decades. Frank Beamer is no longer there. Miami is favored almost as much in this game as they were last week against USF. That should tell you something. Over 2 touchdowns. The Hurricanes are favored by. Miami, of course, beat USF last week on the road 50-15. They're up to number 7 in the AP poll, 4-0. Of course, Dave's Notre Dame Fighting Irish, 3-1. They're 16th in the AP. They did not, in my opinion, look impressive at all as they beat Miami of Ohio here in South Bend 28-3. So now, like I mentioned, Miami tonight, big rivalry game against Virginia Tech. Hopefully they take care of business because the next 3 or 4 weeks are a little bit tricky. If they can get through those, there's a good chance they finish the season undefeated. I doubt it. I highly doubt it. They're going to stumble somewhere. I think they'll get through Virginia Tech tonight, and then somewhere in the next 3 or 4 weeks, they will stub their toe. But the highlights of this weekend's college games that we picked. Now, last weekend, not a lot to discuss. I do want to point out that I tortured our panel with last Thursday night's game, South Alabama at Appalachian State. Everybody bought, including myself, even though I was skeptical. Everybody bought in on App State. South Alabama destroyed Appalachian State 48-14. And I want to keep you guys to keep this in mind for this weekend, even though we don't have this game on the slate. South Alabama is going in to play LSU this weekend. An underwhelming LSU team. South Alabama, in their last 2 games, have scored 135 points in 2 games. You might remember this name, their head coach, Major Applewhite. I believe legendary Texas quarterback, if I'm not mistaken, has got this team running full speed on all cylinders. They started out 0-2, now they are 2-2. LSU better watch out. That's all I'm going to say. LSU better watch out. Otherwise, last week's slate didn't have a ton. There were a couple of big games. USC, of course, goes into the big house. Gets beat by number 18 Michigan, 27-24. Nice showing for Michigan. I had my doubts about Michigan. This was a great showing for them. Very impressed. And once again, Lincoln Riley stubs his toe in a big game. You wonder how much longer the USC faithful are going to put up with this, especially now that they're in the Big Ten. Number 12, Utah, on the road, beats number 14, Oklahoma State, 22-19. Yes, Mike Gundy'd himself, as he always does. Dave pointed this out last week. Every year, Oklahoma State will choke or get beat in a game they really, truly should have won. This was a home game for Oklahoma State. I don't think Utah is as strong as people think. I think the Big 12 out of the Power 4 that we're looking at right now is by far the weakest, yes. Possibly even weaker than the ACC. Didn't think that was possible. Tennessee, number 6 Tennessee, goes into Oklahoma. 25-15 victory over the Sooners. Tennessee looks really good, kids. They are going to make the final 12, I think, without a problem. And then finally, in last week's slate, one big game to point out. Number 13, Kansas State on the road gets shellacked by BYU 38-9. So BYU now might be a team we have to pay attention to. As I mentioned, all of our picks for this week are already out on the Facebook page. I'm just going to touch on a couple of them here. A couple of the teams that we just mentioned coming off of losses. Number 20, Oklahoma State at number 23, Kansas State. That is Saturday, the 28th. Our panel, 5-3 split among the 8 of us. Me, Dave, Sam, Bill, and Nick take Kansas State. Jen, Doug, and Aaron take Oklahoma State. This would probably be the game where Mike Gundy, not expected to win, will step up and they'll somehow find a way to beat Kansas State. This would just be typical of Mike Gundy. Number 22, BYU. We just mentioned them. They have jumped up into the AP Top 25. BYU going into Baylor to play the Baylor Bears. Sam is on an island. Sam is taking Baylor. I'll tell you the one reason why I won't pick Baylor again this year is because last weekend they got beat in overtime by Deion fucking Sanders in Colorado. And if Baylor is going to be Colorado's bitch, then there's no way in hell I think they're going to beat the Mormons. Go BYU. Baylor, you should be ashamed of yourself. Big game here locally on Saturday afternoon. Number 15, Louisville. Number 16, Notre Dame. In South Bend. You know I am a big Notre Dame football cynic. Hence, there go Air 4, whatever kind of fancy language. I know I fucked all that up, and that's fine. I was trying to have fun with it. Aaron and I are taking Louisville. The rest of the panel, the Notre Dame homers, Dave, Sam, Bill, Jen, Nick, and Doug, taking the Fighting Irish. I can't, in good conscience, after witnessing in person the loss to Northern Illinois, and then seeing how difficult it was, at least in the first half, for them to play against Miami of Ohio. Riley Leonard is not a good quarterback. Stop the quarterback option. If you're Louisville, make him throw, and you should easily win this game. And then, of course, the big showdown. Seems like it's a little bit earlier this year than it would be normally, but we're seeing that with a lot of these rivalry games, these big matchups, because of the conference realignments that have kicked in here this season. Number 2, Georgia. At number 4, Alabama. Alabama's been the more impressive team. I hate to say it, but they have been. Kalen DeBoer has stepped right in for Nick Saban and done a really good job. Got Jalen Milroe, Heisman contender. Of course, we all know Cam Ward will win it for Miami. But panel is a 5-3 split here. I'm taking the Crimson Tide. So is Bill. So is Aaron. Georgia for Dave, Sam, Jen, Nick, and Doug. And as I mentioned, plenty more picks out there in this abbreviated hybrid Gonzo edition of Sports Frenzy. Don't have time to run through all of them. Don't have Dave here, so check them out on the Facebook page. Real quick, NASCAR. The Bristol race, the night race last Saturday night. Boy, have they found a way to destroy this race. This used to be the crown jewel, in my opinion. Many people say the Daytona 500. I say it's always been the Bristol Night Race until the last 5 or 6 years where they've changed the banking. And now the tires did not wear down the way that NASCAR thought they would, resulting in an unbelievably, brutally dull race. Kyle Larson dominates. So he moves on to the final 12 in the playoffs. Harrison Burton, an embarrassment, by the way. They have got to change the qualifications for the playoffs. Harrison Burton had no business being in the playoffs. As much as I hate Bubba Wallace deserved to be in the playoffs more than Harrison Burton did. He was an embarrassment. There's a reason why he's going back down to Xfinity next year. He lucked into one win. That's the problem with the current setup. Winning you're in is garbage. Winning you're in is garbage. The other 3 drivers eliminated. Ty Gibbs, a little bit shocking. I expected a little bit more from Ty Gibbs this year. Has not gotten a win yet, and he's already out in the first round of the playoffs. And Joe Gibbs Racing takes a double hit as Martin Truex Jr. also eliminated. Joining them, Brad Keselowski. So we're down to 12. This upcoming Sunday, we start the second round of the playoffs. The 4th race of the playoffs is at Kansas Speedway, the Hollywood Casino 400. I'm taking Chase Elliott, as is the elder statesman. Remember, you can only take a driver once throughout the entire playoffs. So you got to kind of space these things out. Is there another driver or two I would have preferred? Yeah. But let's just say either I've used that driver or I have plans for that driver in the future. So Sam and I take Chase Elliott. Dave's taking Christopher Bell. Bill and Aaron take Denny Hamlin. Nick and Doug take Martin Truex Jr. and Jen takes Tyler Reddick. All right, WNBA. First round is done. I don't like the way they've done this with the WNBA. They basically give a huge advantage to the top 4 seeds as they host in a best of 3 the first 2 games. So, no surprise here. The top 4 seeds all advance. Caitlin Clark's season is done. We're looking at the Aces and the Liberty. We're looking at the Lynx and the Sun. Those aren't the matchups. Those are the 4 teams moving on. Of course, Dave and I next week will cover what happens here in the WNBA semifinals. Again, the Aces, the Liberty, the Lynx, and the Sun have moved on. And again, I'm skipping a lot of headlines. This is not a full episode. I've got to get onto the pop culture stuff here as quickly as I can. NHL coming. I cannot believe the NHL season is coming on this quickly. The preseason is in full swing. We're, just outside of a week away from the regular season beginning already. I don't know if it's just me, but I seem to recall the NBA and the NHL both starting in early November. I do not remember when it switched to the NHL starting their regular season in early October. Man, they don't get a lot of time off. Of course, we do have one big moment of silence. I wish Dave was here for this. Of course, because this impacts one of his teams, the Miami Dolphins, the undefeated season. One less person who will be popping champagne every year somebody, the final remaining undefeated team, loses. Great running back for the Miami Dolphins and that undefeated team, Mercury Morris, has passed away. And then you're probably going, okay, if we're going to wrap up the sports part of this, what are we going to do about the dumbasses? I'm going to just give you a couple. And we'll give you some in the pop culture segment as well. We'll save the really good ones for next week, so your Uncle Dave can chime in and can vote. But these two are pretty blatant and obvious. First up, Nationals All-Star C.J. Abrams sent down to the minors. What happened was they were playing a series against the Chicago Cubs in Chicago. Abrams decided, hey, I'm going to go out all night, hang out at a casino, and show up an hour or two for the next day's game. Just show up an hour or two before the game. Season's over. Hey, what does it matter? I'm a young punk. Well, Dave Martinez is old school. Trust me. I wish he was managing the Chicago Cubs. I don't hate Craig Counsell like everybody else does. And yes, I know we really didn't talk about baseball. Next week will be the big week when we talk about baseball. The playoffs will have started. That's when Dave and I will get into it. Still on hold for the White Sox. Tied for the worst record in the modern era with the 1962 Mets. Cubs trying somehow, some way to get above 500. But of course we know the teams that are in right now, we know it's the Guardians and the Yankees and the Orioles and the Astros in the American League, the Phillies, the Brewers, the Dodgers, and the Padres are in the National League. So there you go. Coming back to the dumbasses. This is the problem I have with young athletes. And yes, I know I sound like the old cranky get off my lawn guy. I get it. But you have got to show a little bit of discipline. You've got to show. You compare this with the idiot that we had as a dumbass last week, the Minnesota Twins 6th-round pick, Derek Bender, who was tipping pitches down in the minors in his first year just because he didn't want his team to qualify for the playoffs. It's the same mentality. You can draw a direct line between these two. Last week, one of our dumbasses, and this week, one of our dumbasses, these young baseball players who aren't committed, don't really care. They think they're entitled, and they think they can do what they want. Yes, I get it, they're young. But if you want to survive and you want to make the really, really big money in baseball, you better get your shit together. Abrams probably will find a way to get around this, apologize. He's got too much talent. He's already proven it at the major league level. The idiot from last week with the Twins, he might have actually figured out a way to sabotage his entire career, because I don't know how anybody would trust him. There's a difference between partying as a young person and showing that level of irresponsibility, and then actually cheating to a point, sabotaging your own team just because you don't want to play in the playoffs. You don't see the point. That guy from last week, Bender, I don't know if anybody will give him a shot ever again. But C.J. Abrams, all night out at the casino in between games in Chicago, you are indeed a dumbass. Then, of course, we just mentioned the WNBA. The WNBA is going through a crisis. You might not believe me. Oh, look at the ratings. The ratings are through the roof. The attendance is through the roof, setting records everywhere. Number one, numbers are being manipulated in every major sport. You can't set new records every day, for every game, for every weekend if it's football. You can't keep setting records. Somebody's fudging numbers somewhere. Now, I do believe the WNBA has been dealing with unprecedented growth, and we all know it boils down to one person. Whether you want to like it, whether you want to admit it or not, it's Caitlin Clark. Now let's see what the numbers look like, what the attendance numbers and what the viewership numbers look like with Caitlin Clark out of the playoffs. And this brings me to my other pair of dumbasses for the week. And then, of course, we'll move on to the weekend edition in this crazy Gonzo hybrid episode of Sports Frenzy 2.0. The Chicago Sky are a mess. Now, they have Angel Reese, who, despite a terrible attitude, looks like she is a damn good basketball player and will be for a long time in the WNBA. But they just fired their head coach after 1 year. And now you have two players from the Chicago Sky, Isabel Harrison and Dana Evans, blaming the new WNBA fans for their poor play because the new fans, hint, hint, wink, wink, fans of Caitlin Clark are, wait for it, racist. Yep, let's pull out the old racist card to describe why we're not playing well. I am so sick and tired of this. Whether it's sports, whether it's pop culture, move on. Move the fuck on. Stop making excuses. Stop acting like things aren't equal because they are. They are. There are so many programs, so many entitlements out there. Now, whether or not people choose to take advantage of those programs and those entitlements to better themselves, to get an education, to figure out a way to have a backup career if their pipe dream of being a professional athlete either doesn't come to pass or doesn't pay as much as they thought it was going to, that's on the person. It's not on the culture. It's not on the society. It's not on the country. So Isabel Harrison and Dana Evans of the Chicago Sky, you are both a couple of pathetic dumbasses. All right, once again, tired, very tired after a long, stressful, messed up week, but we're halfway home. We're probably going to go a little over the hour that I set for this, which is fine. Not too much over. But we're done with sports as much as I'm going to cover here. The rest of it we will save for next week. We'll play catch up with your Uncle Dave. Internet's back up and working. We'll be back on schedule, back to normal next week. Of course, Thursday morning, you will get your Sports Frenzy 2.0 Sports Fix. And then next Saturday morning, you will get your Saturday Morning Hangover Cure, the weekend edition. But we're smashing them together here for 1 week and 1 week only, hopefully. in a double secret Gonzo hybrid episode of Sports Frenzy 2.0. So sports over, done, fini. Let's move on to music, movies, TV and streaming, pop culture. Quick shift. Even though you're getting ready to go out tonight, and normally we'd be with you tomorrow morning to help you through your hangover. If you want to pause this right now and save the weekend edition for tomorrow morning like you would normally, go for it. Here's your mark right now. Hit pause. Otherwise, we're heading straight on in to pop culture and the weekend edition of Sports Frenzy 2.0. All right, so before we get into the weekend edition, in this goofy, crazy, double secret Gonzo hybrid episode, half sports, half pop culture, kind of like a pizza, half pepperoni, half sausage. I was technically kind of fooling around with the idea of calling this the forced vacation episode. But number one, that almost sounds like I got put in jail. So I didn't want to go there. Plus, it's not really a vacation because, as I've already mentioned, with jury duty and the internet going down and having to have AT&T come out to repair it, and they did a great job. I am not slamming AT&T. Did a great job. The problem was not on my end. It was at a junction box somewhere a mile or two away. But I still lost my internet for a day right when Dave and I were supposed to record. So, it's all good now. It's all fixed. Next week we'll be back on schedule. But for now, you get this goofy, double-sided, double split in half, goofy, weird Gonzo hybrid episode. Of course, dropping Friday afternoon, September the 27th on Spotify, Good Pods, Pocket Casts, Apple, Overcast, Castbox, Amazon Music, Audible, and iHeartRadio. And I've mentioned it countless times, always do during the sports part of the show. Check out the Facebook page. You will have a link to any episode you want. Regular edition, which of course is sports. Pop culture edition, which of course is your Saturday morning hangover cure. The weekend edition of Sports Frenzy 2.0. Both, of course, magnificently politically incorrect. We curse, we swear, we rip Republicans, we rip Democrats, we rip the stupidity and the idiocy in both pop culture and the sports world. So I'm going to be a little bit more informal here for the weekend edition because a lot of this stuff I really want to review with Dave. We had this, again, all set up, and the internet crapped out literally 3 hours before we were supposed to start recording. And it took a full day to get it back up and running again, and by then he couldn't fill in at the last minute. He's got a family commitment for this weekend. Oh, I might make fun of him about that next week. I won't spoil it for you, but let's just say he is heading out to the Mistake by the Lake for a weekend that I'm not sure he is going to revel in because he's going to miss out on all the football again. Now, the last 2 Sundays we've missed out on football because, as you guys know, if you listen to the weekend edition, we've had concerts. They just happen to fall on Sundays, so we have not been able to watch a lot of NFL football the previous 2 Sundays. And he is screwed again for a 3rd Sunday in a row, whereas I thankfully get to relax this weekend and watch all the college and the pro football. Now, I am going to kind of discuss that second Sunday concert, which was just this past Sunday. It was kind of leading into my week from hell. Now, the concert itself was not bad at all. It was actually awesome. I did actually screw up my back, though, which was the start of the week from hell. So, even though it was a standing room only show, Fu Manchu, Clutch, and Rival Sons, there were a couple times where I had to pull back and sit down on the concrete pad at the Sweetwater Performance Pavilion outside of Fort Wayne, Indiana, because I just could not stand for 3+ hours. I needed a break here and there. Here's what I'm going to tell you about this show, this triple bill. Now, of course, Dave and I were there for Rival Sons. Ever since we saw them a few years back open for Greta Van Fleet, we've been enamored with them. We think they are the best rock and roll band out there right now. This is the third time we got to see them. This was the first time we got to see them play, let's say, pretty close to a headliner set. They got about an hour and 20 minutes, which is pretty damn close to a headliner set. The other two times they were opening, we already mentioned Greta Van Fleet, and then of course last year they were the first band in a triple bill with Interpol and Smashing Pumpkins. The thing that stood out to me, couple things. I'm going to do a very cursory review of the show for you because, number one, I don't know anything about Fu Manchu, and I've barely had time to listen to anything from Clutch. I will tell you this. Clutch fans are assholes. Clutch fans are assholes, and not because they were rude, not because they get in fights or they curse and they swear and they drink too much and puke on people's shoes. Not that kind of asshole. But a couple days before the show, I happened to jump on to a Reddit thread trying to find out if somebody could clarify 100% for me who was going to be the final act performing in the lineup, because they've been switching on and off Clutch and Rival Sons. In this Reddit thread I jumped onto happened to be Clutch fans, and this should have been my first warning. It was my first warning. Rival Sons suck. Why would you ever let Rival Sons close out the night? We're all going to leave if that's the case when Clutch is done playing. And I'm like, wow, that's harsh. That is harsh. Rarely in the 40 years I've been going to concerts have I ever said, well, I'm here for this band, but I'm going to leave after they're done because I really don't want to give the other band or bands a chance. I mean, we're talking super, super rare that I've ever done it, that Dave and I have ever done it when we've gone to shows together. Why wouldn't you just get your money's worth and try to find a new band? Maybe a band that you've never experienced before. See if they're any good or not. Now, as it turned out, it went Fu Manchu, Clutch, and then Rival Sons to close the show out. The thing that makes me call Clutch fans assholes isn't just that Reddit thread and the posts, because you can find trolls for any band, any performer, anywhere. There's the sycophants who love them, and then there's going to be the people that hate everybody but their band. So I'm like, okay, I will take this, I will put it away in my little rock and roll brain, the vault, for a couple days from now. So sure enough, Dave and I get there. It's pretty sizable, decent crowd. Again, standing room only. Weather was awful. Weather was absolutely pitiful and awful. Luckily, again, the Sweetwater Performance Pavilion is covered, so even though there was some rain leaking in through the sides, it was fine. Made it a little difficult when you had to go to the bathroom, though, because then you had to go out in the rain. The Clutch fans did exactly what they said they were going to do. Once Fu Manchu and Clutch were done, I am not kidding you people, 3/4 of the crowd left. 2/3 to 3/4 of the crowd walked. They left. Which blew me away. I felt so bad. So bad for rival sons. They do not deserve that kind of bullshit. And again, we're not talking about the Clutch fans being ornery, nasty, rude, drunk, getting into fights. They're just nasty people when it comes to their band. Their band is all they care about, nobody else. And you can say, oh, don't overreact, Maestro, what's the big deal? It's rock and roll rudeness. It's a faux pas. It's an etiquette breach. Because rival sons are 10 times better than Clutch, number one. The lead singer of Clutch reminds me of the actor Jeffrey Dean Morgan. He puts enough energy into the show, but the songs aren't that dissimilar. They all kind of sound the same. Now, Dave, he'll chime in next week. He liked them more than I did. I think he was willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. There were moments between both Fu Manchu and Clutch where I said, okay, here and there, you could hear some really cool guitar riffs or interesting hooks, but by no means were either of those bands, Fu Manchu or Clutch, a band that I would go out of my way to see again. So Clutch fans, kiss my ass, you rude ass motherfuckers. How dare you insult rival sons like that? You pathetic wastes. Go listen to Blast Tyrant again, because of course that was the big thing. For the second weekend in a row, I got to listen to a band play an entire album in sequence from beginning to end. 2 weeks ago it was Stone Temple Pilots in Purple. Awesome. And then this past weekend, it was Clutch and Blast Tyrant. So for now, forever and ever, from here on out to the day I die, I will not tolerate a Clutch fan. If somebody says during a conversation at a party, I like Clutch, I will walk away. I will walk away, because otherwise I would be tempted to punch them in the face. Now, focusing on the band that really mattered, Rival Sons, as I mentioned, an hour and 20-minute set. I will say this, I can be critical of my bands, I can be critical of the bands that I love. The first half an hour was a little sluggish. They picked some songs at the beginning of the set that kind of bogged things down a bit, like Sleepwalker. Now, I had to piece together the set list because unlike maniacal Clutch fans, who the minute the show's over have to go out there and say, this is exactly what they played and every song was awesome. I had the same problem here recently with Lynch Mob. The fans are there just to enjoy the show. We're not there to catalog the set list and then post it on the internet. So I had to piece together the Rival Sons set as best I could. But Dave and I know we discussed it on the way back from Fort Wayne. The first half an hour was definitely average at best. And again, I will blame, I know they played Sleepwalker, and I believe they played Get What's Coming. Along with the opening track, the one new song they played off of their pair of new albums from last year, Dark Fighter and Lightbringer, they open the set with Mirrors, which is fine in and of itself, but if you're going to open with Mirrors, you better throw 3 or 4 really strong songs in after Mirrors, because Mirrors is not one of the better tracks off of that pair of new albums they put out last year. So again, I can be critical of my own bands. Clutch fans don't have the right, though. You don't have the right to criticize my band. Then, once we got through the first half an hour, the final 45, 50 minutes were perfection. Absolute rock and roll perfection. Because that's when, of course, they saved all their best stuff for the end. You know what they played. If you know anything about Rival Sons, you know they played Pressure in Time, Feral Roots, Electric Man, among others. Dave and I will probably break it down a little bit more for you next week. So I don't know how to rate this. I don't know how to rate this concert. I don't know if I really want to go band by band. I don't think that's fair because I don't know enough about Fu Manchu and Clutch. Overall, I would give it a solid 3 frenzies. If I had to separate and take Rival Sons out and grade them on their own, then I give them a weak 3.5 frenzies. Despite the fact the first half an hour was a little mediocre, still an unbelievably solid show from there on out. I mean, it was, after that sluggish first half an hour, it was a solid 4 frenzies the rest of the night. So it balances out to a weak 3.5. So there you go, kids. There's your semi-concert review of the week. The Conquistador, again, I'm sure will chime in next week. We've got a lot of songs that we're going to push back to next week to review with your Uncle Dave. I do have one that I'm going to slide in here because I know he would never want to review it. So this is the perfect opportunity for me to throw this one in at you. Brand new song from Sting. Dave hates the Police. So this has worked out well in that I can throw this one in as a bonus song review for you. I Wrote Your Name Upon My Heart. Now Sting has formed a new power trio, unofficially called Sting 3.0. I wanted to like this song. I really did, because it's not, it's not the mellow stuff that artists like him or Mark Knopfler, as they get older, have kind of fallen back into the easy, mellow, adult contemporary music. This has got a little bit of a spine, a little bit of a backbone to it, a little bit of a harder edge. But my problem with the song is that it is so repetitive. I mean, the riff, the structure of the song is just repetitive to the point where you would have been better off keeping this at a very, very short 2.5-minute type song, because otherwise it just comes off as dragging on and on and on and doesn't go anywhere really important or different. There are no cool solos or instrumental breaks anywhere. So for that reason, I will have to say that the new song from Sting, I Wrote Your Name Upon My Heart, is a near miss. I can only give it 2 frenzies. Alright, so we move on here in our double secret Gonzo hybrid episode of Sports Frenzy. Finishing up the weekend edition half. Moving on to TV and streaming. Did watch the first episode of The Penguin on Max. Of course, you knew we were going to watch that. Very good, very solid first episode. Colin Farrell has got to be one of the most underrated actors in Hollywood. Not just for this performance, he's done some great stuff otherwise. Of course, recently, The Banshees of Inisherin. Brilliant movie, brilliant performance by him and Brendan Gleeson. But with the makeup, the transformation, turning Colin Farrell into Oz Cobb, of course, Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin. Definitely a darker, grittier rendition of the Penguin. Now, we were introduced to this version of the Penguin in the great Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson movie from a few years ago, The Batman. And of course, they're working right now on the second of what's supposed to be a trilogy. Shocking, right? But what's going to transpire in The Penguin, this series on Max, is supposed to directly lead into the next movie. It takes place, it starts off right after the events of the first one. So it fits very nicely in the timeline, and so far through the first episode, very, very solid. So if you haven't already, check out The Penguin on Max. New episodes, I believe, are dropping now every Sunday night. The first episode debuted on a Thursday, but now from here on out, new episodes every Sunday. I'm still trying to catch up on Tracker. Liking it much more than I thought I would. Thought that it was going to be generic network crap, and it ends up being a little bit better, if not a lot better. So I'm 3 episodes in on season 1. Got 10 more episodes, I believe, to rip through here in the next few weeks before season 2 begins. Of course, based on the Coulter Shaw books by Jeffrey Deaver. Not going to jump to conclusions on this one yet because I've only watched most of the first episode. But this could be one where I was wrong. Yes, I can admit when I'm wrong. And this could be one of those instances. Rescue High Surf. Now, it debuted on Fox to big-time numbers, very solid numbers, on its debut episode. To me, I was drawn in because of the pedigree, the people involved, including one of the actors, and the people behind the scenes worked on one of the greatest shows of the last 20 years, Animal Kingdom. So I thought, even though, just like with Tracker, I was fooled by the commercials. Thought, well, maybe just because the commercials for Rescue High Surf look a little bit generic and too Baywatchy, maybe this will have a little more depth and be a little bit better. Now, from what I've watched so far, I'm on the fence. I'll admit, I'm on the fence. It could go either way. But this is not like Tracker, where when I started watching the first episode of Tracker, I realized, okay, this show's a lot better than the generic ads made it look like it was going to be. I don't have that feeling yet, almost a full episode into Rescue High Surf. So your Uncle Dave and I will jump in and we will decide next week whether we're going to continue with that or we're going to bail. I have just started the Netflix documentary Mr. McMahon, of course, about the WWE and Vince McMahon, the megalomaniac behind the WWE. You knew. Out of the two of us, I am the wrestling fanatic. You knew I was going to be watching this. I'm not going to try to talk Dave into watching it. If he wants to of his own accord, that's fine. So far, the first episode, which I'm almost done with, is really more about the history of the WWE, a little bit of personal information about Vince McMahon, but nothing earth-shattering. There is a decent amount of discussion about his relationship with his father, but there's a lot more about Hulk Hogan and how he became the first iconic superstar of the WWE. I'll have more episodes under my belt by next Wednesday when we tape the weekend edition. Of course, you will hear it a week from tomorrow. Next Saturday morning, we'll be into October. I will have more on the Netflix documentary Mr. McMahon. And then one quick little note. Again, good thing Dave's not here. He would care about nothing about this. But because my daughter and I, this is one of those TV shows that if you're a parent, you remember the shows, the movies that you watched with your children as they were growing up, and you kind of bonded over them. Now, unfortunately, my daughter is now a young adult. She's 23. She lives halfway across the country, so those days are gone. And I'll get a little misty-eyed here and say the cliches are true. The time will pass so quickly. So if you've got young children out there, enjoy every second with them, because before you know it, it will be gone. And I am not trying to sound like a Hallmark card. I am just telling you straight up from personal opinion, it's the truth. There is truth behind the cliches. But anyway, one of the shows that my daughter and I, when she was a teenager, that we bonded over, that we watched, for the most part, we bailed halfway through. I know this is terrible. We bailed halfway through the final season of Orphan Black. Of course, Tatiana Maslany was brilliant, playing multiple roles, of course, clones. And the show had a very dense mythology to it. Now, again, we've kind of faded out in the final season, so I can't tell you how it ended. At some point, I might jump back in and try to rewatch it. I don't think I'd be able to jump in halfway through the final season. I'd probably have to restart from the very beginning because it's been years now. But the spin-off series on AMC, starring Kristen Ritter, of course, some of us know her most for being Jessica Jones on the very good Netflix Marvel series. She starred in the spin-off Orphan Black Echoes, which has obviously not done well because AMC has canceled Orphan Black Echoes after one season. Okay, for books, Dave and I have a book review for next week. We were supposed to do it this week. The new Lee Child short story collection, Safe Enough, will be our book review next week. Now, I will go ahead and review our movie that we had scheduled for this week. Because Dave probably wants to punch me over this one, and I can't blame him, because this was one that I pushed, that I recommended. A24, this new hip movie distributor, has had a lot of decent sized hits recently. Quality-wise, they are very hit and miss. They get a little bit artsy-fartsy, avant-garde. Recently, they, of course, had Civil War, which I will never, ever, ever, ever watch because it's propaganda and it's garbage. I'm not watching any movie that glorifies how wonderful photojournalists are and journalists in general, because I hate the media. I think they're manipulative. I think they're state-run. Anyway, I'm not feeling real great about A24 for another reason now. Because I watched new to Max. Of course, Max has a deal with A24. Max is the streaming home for A24 releases here for the immediate future. Now, they did also have the Iron Claw, which was very good. The tragic story of the Von Erich wrestling family. But if I could tell you to stay the holy hell away from a movie, I would tell you to stay the holy hell away from I Saw the TV Glow. This movie is abysmal. You want to talk about the definition of artsy-fartsy and pretentious? This is it. Let me explain to you, by number one, by giving you my grade right off the bat. I Saw the TV Glow gets 1/2 of a frenzy. That's how bad this is. Almost the lowest grade possible here on Sports Frenzy. Half a frenzy. Now, this is again a very pretentious movie which is trying to play psychological mind games not only with the audience but with the characters. You got these two high school kids who kind of sort of bond over a TV show called The Pink Opaque. But then we start finding out maybe the female, there's a boy and a girl. The boy's very shy, has a very awful, terrible home life. The girl is a little bit more outgoing, but she's an outcast pretty much as well, and again has a terrible, awful home life. So you got to start wondering, are these two having mental issues? A shared mental episode? Now they bond over the TV show. Things get weird. Is this happening in the TV show? Is this happening in real life? Where's the crossover? Is there a crossover? Or are they just both nuts? I didn't care about the characters. The actors are terrible. The writing is terrible. In no way, shape, or form draws you in, other than you keep waiting and waiting and waiting for something significant to happen. You almost trick yourself into, well, let me stick with it for another 15 minutes. It's got to get better, right? It's just got to get better. And it never, ever does. An awful, terrible movie. One of the worst movies I have ever watched in my life. Half a frenzy for I Saw the TV Glow. Other little movie news tidbits. A great movie, which I almost want to watch again as soon as possible to cleanse my palate after subjecting myself to I Saw the TV Glow. Deadpool and Wolverine will be on Blu-ray and DVD October the 22nd. So we can all look forward to that, little less than a month away. We've got some new trailers out there for you guys to check out. This is something kind of new we've started doing every week. I don't necessarily watch the trailers. Your Uncle Dave doesn't necessarily watch them. We try to. But these are the trailers of the shows and the movies coming up that we are most interested in, just passing along the information to you guys so you can jump on YouTube and watch these trailers. Now Dave is into The Lincoln Lawyer on Netflix. The trailer for season 3 of The Lincoln Lawyer is out, based on the books by Michael Connelly. A movie that I never watched, but I really, really need to and want to, starring Gerard Butler, Den of Thieves, the second movie in the series. Yes, now it's a series. Den of Thieves 2 Pantera. The trailer for that is out now. I believe that's in theaters in January of 2025. Cross, the trailer for the upcoming Amazon Prime series starring Aldous Hodge, I believe, as Alex Cross. The James Patterson novels, we've seen Morgan Freeman play Alex Cross. We've seen Tyler Perry in a theatrical bomb. He played Alex Cross. So I have much higher hopes for this if it can overcome the awful writing of James Patterson, that is. I like the cast. I always like the character, the idea of the character, so I might give Cross a shot. Another trailer is out for Gladiator 2. Another trailer is out for Red One. Of course, that's the holiday movie, the action movie with Chris Evans and The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. There's finally a teaser trailer out for Thunderbolts, the next big Marvel Universe movie, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, out, I believe, early summer of 2025. I think that closes out the current phase for the MCU. Now, I'm looking forward to Thunderbolts, but I'm still holding back my ultimate supreme optimism because, again, every time you see something come out like Deadpool and Wolverine or Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, when you know somebody else really had the power and the control and was able to overcome the negative influence of Disney, then you get something like the just recently released new Marvel series on Disney Plus, Agatha All Along, which looks like absolute and total crap. And of course, we mentioned last week how the cast bragged about how it's the gayest Marvel show ever. Yeah, that's not going to be one I'm going to watch. But Thunderbolts, kind of Marvel's version of the Suicide Squad, could be interesting. You got Bucky Barnes, you've got U.S. Agent, you've got a lot of interesting anti-heroes involved here, so Thunderbolts could be good. And then, of course, a show where I thought they would be one and done. The ultra-popular Squid Game. But, of course, it's all about greed. If something's popular, there's no way they're going to bring it to an end after one season, even though I think Squid Game seems to me like it just should have been a one-season show. I don't know how they're going to pull off season 2, but the trailer is now out for Squid Game 2, coming here at the end on Netflix, the end of 2024. So there you go, kids. There's all the trailers for you. Moments of silence in the entertainment world. Freddie Salem, guitarist for the Outlaws, passed away. And then David Graham. Now, this would be more in Dave's wheelhouse. I probably should have saved this, but David Graham came up with the voice of the Daleks in Doctor Who. I'm not a Doctor Who guy, but your Uncle Dave is. And then, of course, he also did a lot of voices in the classic, I don't know if you want to call it, action puppet show, Thunderbirds. So if you know what Thunderbirds is, you're old school like me. But David Graham, of course, notable voices in Thunderbirds. So we had Thunderbolts and Thunderbirds. Amazing I didn't get those mixed up. Thoughts and prayers to the families, the friends of Freddie Salem and David Graham. 3 quick Red Foreman pop culture dumbasses for you this week, and then we'll let you go. I'll get out of here because I got more podcasting to do. Get back on schedule for my other podcast, The Fortress of Rock, where we talk about all things rock and roll. I don't normally like to pimp it during our Sports Frenzy podcast, since it's me and me alone, but since this week it's me and me alone, I'm going to pimp it. Every Friday night, check out The Fortress of Rock if you want an in-depth look at the week in rock and roll, past, present, and future. All right, our 3 Red Foreman dumbasses of the week here, since your Uncle Dave, once again, not here in this double secret Gonzo hybrid episode. I'm just going to give you these 3 real quick. You judge. Drop a comment if you want to chime in on which one is the most egregious Red Foreman dumbass of the week. CBS. Now, we've heard a lot about Zorro. There are a lot of different incarnations of Zorro out there. Overseas, they're making international versions of Zorro. Zorro, one of the most popular global heroes of all time. But of course, here in America, we've got to figure out a way to fuck it up. And it's got to come from CBS. Of course, CBS right now, the dominant broadcast network. Yes, I watch Tracker on CBS. They didn't fuck that one up. A lot of people watch NCIS. Good for them. I don't care. And I definitely don't care about this. CBS is developing a new Zorro series. Except, of course, in this day and age of political correctness, God, when will it ever end? We've got to have a series featuring a female Zorro. Come up with a different idea. Create a new, strong female hero. Stop poaching old ideas and twisting them and turning them and changing them to fit your politically correct agenda. It's not that hard. If you're creative people in Hollywood like you're supposed to be, write a new, dynamic, awesome female hero. Don't poach Zorro. Then, of course, sticking with TV idiocy, hey, it's our weekly look at The View. The biggest on-screen, over-the-air poison that there is in this country, with the idiots Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg and the cast of morons that surround them. Well, this shout out this week goes out to Whoopi Goldberg in particular, because now let's make it even worse. Let's make The View even more poisonous and despicable. Whoopi Goldberg is suggesting, some say jokingly, some say seriously, that when they have an opening, or even if they don't, let's get Hillary Clinton on full-time on The View. Oh my God. When will the inferno, the rings of hell open up behind or underneath this stage, this set where they film this show, and swallow up all these evil demons and let us be rid of them? I'm not trying to go biblical because, again, I'm agnostic, but there's got to be some kind of evil power that's keeping this show on the air and keeping these idiots talking. And if you add Hillary Clinton to the mix, I mean, this would be like a sci-fi show where matter and antimatter meet. And the world will implode. because of the sheer and utter confluence of evil. And then finally, you guys should know by now, I hate rap music. I hate rap music. I don't even think it's music. I think it's a scourge on our culture. I think it's pathetic that young people listen to this and try to emulate the pathetic styles. Let me have a grill. Let me have a grill. Let me get face tattoos. And that's why you're going to be either dealing drugs or working at McDonald's your whole life. Macklemore. Now, this is a white dude, okay? This is a white hip-hop rapper. And somehow, because of all the money he's made through the last 20 or 25 years of the upsurge, the uptick, the popularity of hip-hop and rap, he's now rich beyond belief. It's amazing to me how many stupid people are rich beyond belief in America. He actually owns part of 2 sports franchises. He owns part of the NHL's Seattle Kraken and part of the Major League Soccer team, the Seattle Sounders. Well, in Seattle, there was recently a pro-Palestinian festival. And I know this is a very divisive issue in our country. I'm kind of shocked that it's as divisive as it is, but it's something we should discuss and debate, not have violent protests and not shut down streets and college campuses for. We should have a logical, sane debate about it. But of course, God help us, we can't do that anymore. So let's follow the example of Macklemore. At this pro-Palestinian festival or concert in Seattle recently, Macklemore picked up on a chant in the crowd and decided to say, I hear you and I'm with you. Fuck America. So he joined in with the crowd on a chant in Seattle, Washington, the last time I checked in America, of fuck America. The America where Macklemore made all his money. The America where he owns parts of 2 American sports franchises. And thank God those sports franchises came out immediately and tried to distance themselves from this idiot Macklemore. Macklemore needs somebody to take a tire iron upside his head. The only way you fight bullies is with bullying. Democrats, liberals love to scream and shout and threaten violence. And the minute you do it to them, you're called a bully. You're called a hate monger. Well, I don't play that game. I don't play that game at all, and I wish more people in our country would fight back, not with violence, but stand up to the bullies. Don't let them shout you down. You get in their face, you tell them they're wrong, you tell them they're full of shit. And then you say, prove to me why you're not. Give me an intellectual Macklemore probably can't tie his own shoes. I guarantee you he's not an intellectual genius. And again, he made all his money in America. Now he's saying, fuck America. Then leave. Then leave, asshat. Leave. Alright, that's going to about do it for this weird, wild, double secret Gonzo hybrid episode of Sports Frenzy. Half sports, half pop culture. Ugh. Miles to go before I sleep, but at least the week from hell is almost over. I hope your week and your weekend go much, much better. I hope for nothing but the best for you kids out there, because you're the intelligent ones, you're the smart ones, because you're listening to Sports Frenzy 2.0. I'm the Maestro Kevin Crane. Next week, hopefully, we'll be rejoined by my brother from another mother, the Conquistador, Dave Height. But until then, we will talk to you next Thursday morning for sports and next Saturday morning for the weekend edition, politically incorrect pop culture commentary. Once again, have a great weekend and a great week. We will check you out in October. Take care, kids.